Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another very exciting and brand new episode of the Wrassingh Show. And today's episode is going to be very, very special. It's going to be one of the most exciting, one of the most insightful, and dare I say, one of the most dramatic episodes ever. Joining me today is an incredibly talented wrestler, a super kind and a humble man, former WWE NXT Tag Team Champion, and the only person in the history of the world to learn and perform a country's national anthem in foreign language in less than 48 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about the one and the only, the Drama King. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome to you Matthew Rehwoldt. Matt, welcome to the show.
Wow.
It's a pleasure and a joy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Man, I thought I was good at intros. I thought that was my thing. You're taking my gimmick now for introductions.
I learn from the best. You know, I've been watching you for years now, and I learn from you. So thank you. Right, learning from you.
Fair enough.
The more I say about you, the less it is. You are such an incredibly talented individual. I mean, you can act, you can sing, you can wrestle. And you can do all the three things together at the very same time and look damn good while doing it all. It's incredible.
Oh, well, I very much appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. I take a lot of pride in my work.
And you should. Definitely you should, Matt. And let's go to the very beginning. People know Aiden English. People know, the WWE superstar, who created a buzz, is a household name all around the globe. But let's go back to the very beginning. I mean, you developed interest in acting, I believe, at a very early age. And you studied acting, and you did about, I believe, over 24 of stage shows before you ultimately took over wrestling as a profession. So, and you're laughing as I talk about it.
Well, because you got that off Wikipedia, and
that's right.
Wikipedia got that from a WWE.com article that I lied in because I was doing it all in character. It was a Byron Saxton interview when I was in FCW. Yeah, so he's like, embellish wherever you want to. So yeah, no, I have not been in 24 stage productions. I did not start acting at a very young age. It's funny, but whoever put it on Wikipedia, it just stuck. I should probably go and edit it or whatever.
I'm gonna do it.
It's not totally inaccurate. I started acting at the end of high school. So when I was around 17 years old or so. I was always too shy. I was a super shy kid. I was way too shy to do acting. I was not 5 years old, like singing and dancing, playing Tiny Tim. You know what I mean? I was not that kid. I was very, very, very shy. Still am, really, in some respects. But started doing the acting at the end of high school, kind of had a friend who had done theater, his kind of urging, and he thought, hey, I think you'd be good at this. And he knew I wanted to be a wrestler. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it'll help me be camera ready. It'll help me work in front of an audience because I'd never really done that, never done public speaking, anything of that sort. So it was my means to an end because I did always want to be a wrestler. And but then I fell in love with the craft of acting and performing in and of itself on its own. That's why I ended up going to college to study theater as well.
That's right. And it's incredible. So I thought you were acting first and then you got into wrestling. So I really wanted to know, how did that happen? Because, a lot of the people that I know from fine arts department, the one that I know of, they stay away from stuff like wrestling. So I thought this is very, very unique and exciting. But, to 2010, it was 2010 when you graduated from Columbia College, I believe, right?
Yes.
And you made your in-ring debut, though, a year prior to that in 2009. So that I believe was IWA Mid-South, if I'm not wrong. Is that right?
If that counts? I mean I did a video on this on my YouTube channel where I watched it. So that was a tryout. I was untrained. I do not recommend anybody do it. I was untrained. It was me and a friend who had kind of wrestled around in my house in my backyard. And it was a total scam of a show because they made you pay to wrestle, and you should never ever 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 pay to perform. There are very, very few niche industries where it is kind of part of it, but generally speaking. So yeah, it was this indie promoter's kind of way to get these young kids to pay him $10 each so he could watch them have subpar matches and then tear them apart and then never see them again. So I was untrained to do that with my buddy. I should probably not have done that, but I didn't properly start training and do it the right way until 2011.
That's right. And your story, now that I know about the whole backstory, it reminds me of Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 1, when you showed up at a wrestling show, wrestle Macho Man. It reminds me of that, a college-going guy and just gets to a wrestling show, does all the craziness. That must have been very scary. I mean, no insurance, nothing like that.
Oh, it kind of continued that way. We're going to talk about insurance and stuff. That's a whole nother matter, though. But it was. And because, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of thought we knew-ish what we were doing. And again, I fully do not condone doing that. Go get trained, get proper training, because it is very, very easy to mess up, to hurt yourself, things like that. So, again, I don't want. I have to belabor that point because it was not a good idea. But it was very intimidating. It was very. There were some people there who had been wrestling a few years who were trying to just get in with this company. And so we were kind of out of our element, but it was an experience. It was something that I'll never forget, for better or for worse. And it was really something else.
Love it. Love it. So the guy you wrestled there, I believe his name was TJ Panic.
Yeah.
Did you know him before? Do you still know him?
Oh God, he's I was just playing Halo with him last night. He's one of my best friends, friend from high school. We met in high school in gymnastics, actually. And he's one of his name's Chris, and we kind of met making fun of pro wrestling. Wow. So, because we were both we were in the gymnastics gym or whatever, and we had a big foam pit to practice maneuvers and stuff. And we saw each other pretending to swanton or powerbomb into the thing one day. And it was at a time when wrestling it was just off the big hype. So it was kind of cooling down after the Attitude Era, right? So it wasn't super in vogue. It wasn't super pop culture popular at the moment. It was still very popular, but not to the degree it was. So it was a little less cool to like it. So we were kind of hiding it. And then we were like, yeah, you're making fun of that wrestling stuff, right? And he's like, yeah, that stuff's so stupid. It's fake. It's dumb, right? Yeah. And then we kept doing it and kept getting more and more involved in our joke. And then eventually it was one day we're like, do you watch it? And he's like, yeah, I watch it every week. I'm like, yeah, me too. Hey, do you want to come over and watch it? Yeah, let's do it. We're best friends now. And we just fell in love with wrestling together. We got pay-per-views and would hang out at each other's houses. And like I said, wrestle around in my backyard. We really fell in love with the sport together. And we've stayed in touch. Now he's a father, he's a police officer, he's a husband, he's a whole functioning adult, and I'm over here wearing spandex.
But Matthew, is it safe to say that night or that day you ended TJ Panic, your good friend's wrestling career, for good?
I guess in theory, was that the last time we probably messed around a little bit after that, but we never wrestled in a ring properly again after that. So yeah, I guess it's true. Chris, I'm sorry. I love you.
I must say, I've done a lot of these interviews and never have I felt like I'm talking to a wrestling fan. I always feel like I'm talking to a wrestling celebrity or wrestler, but right now as I'm speaking to you, I know I'm talking to a huge wrestler, but also a genuine wrestling fan, which just makes me so happy.
You gotta be, man. I mean, this is one of those businesses, and if you're not a fan, there's very few exceptions, but man, if you're not a fan of what this is, of what we do, even if it comes later, I've met some people who've become fans of it within the industry, but if you don't, it will chew you up and spit you out, because it is hard. And to go through all the hardships and the travel and the bumps and the pains and all that, if you don't love what this is, what this product is in some way, shape, or form, you will be absolutely miserable. So yeah, I think it's a key part of it.
So a follow-up question to that, since you bring that up, it's a very interesting point. WWE just introduced their NIL program, which they're signing college athletes. Now, a lot of them, or at least a few of them, would not be wrestling fans. They would just be athletes probably coming in to explore this wrestling, world and see if they can make it big. Do you think that program of NIL is going to be a success based on the fact that a lot of non-wrestling fans are going to be signing up for it?
I think that, yeah, I actually do. You know what I mean? It's not the only route. I know they've moved away from kind of where NXT was when I was there, and they scouted some of the top independent talent around the world and everything like that. They're shifting back to kind of traditional athletes and stuff like that. I think you need to have a widespread approach because I think you can find incredible talent from both pools. One of my favorite examples is, and I don't know if he'll like me bringing it up or not, is Baron Corbin is one of these people who shocked me. I will be the first to admit it. So when he came in, he was a professional football player, and came in. I think he'd watched it with his, dad or grandparents, that kind of relationship. He had seen it, but he wasn't like a diehard fan like a lot of us were. The dreams of WrestleMania weren't necessarily his. He boxed, he played pro football and everything. And he came in when the opportunity was presented to him because he wanted to give it a try. And he's one of those people who, in the craft of developing through that program, he fell in love with what we do. He learned, he became a student of the game. He learned quickly and, worked with the right people and everything like that and really developed a passion for it. So it may not have been there the same way for like a little fanboy like me as in my journey, but he's one of those people who found it in the development. So like it is possible. And so, there's so many incredible athletes from the collegiate scene, from the pro scene. If you ignore that, I know there's a lot of fans out there who'll be like, just wrestler, just people who've always wanted to be in, world champions their whole life. That's great. And there's so many great talents out there with that background. But if you totally ignore people who, may not consider this and have incredible athletic backgrounds, you're ignoring a huge segment of your potential talent pool. So I think it's a very cool program. I do applaud them. I hope it goes very well for them. I think it could be. But I think it just needs to be one avenue of many.
I see. Well, thanks for sharing that. But what do you feel about the reports that have been circulating saying that WWE is actually closing their doors on independent talent and they're only going to be hiring people based on their look, not just talent?
First off, I'll say a rumor is a rumor. It's for just that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I refuse to believe it's just look. Now, don't get me wrong. This is TV. We're making movies here. We're making characters.
That's right.
Certain looks are very, very good. So the aesthetic part of it is very important. But having been in the company, it's never about just look. You can't have just one piece of that puzzle. Nobody's gotten through with literally just because if they did, when they came in, they would flop somewhere. Now, some people, the wrestling ability, the athletic ability may not be there, but they have a look and they have a personality. They have some. If you have we always talk about it: walk the walk, talk the talk, and look the look. I would say you can usually get through with 2 out of 3. You know what I mean? Ideally, you got 3 out of 3. You're the total package. You're the damn Rock, right? But if you got it, you can't just have one. I've seen very, 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 very few people make it through just being able to wrestle and not have anything else, or just look really good and can't talk, can't captivate, and can't wrestle, or any of it. You've got to have a few aspects of this. So, but I'll say this. What's one thing if you've learned both watching and having been there, nothing is forever. Everything is for now. You know what I mean? Whether it's Vince McMahon's rules on words you can't say on TV, or you know what I mean? Or the way they're going with talent development. Because when I got hired, they were kind of in a similar thing. We're not hiring anyone over 30. We're not hiring anyone with bad habits on the independents. I was kind of a fluke. I had a good relationship with Norman Smiley. They just needed some new young people. They brought me in. But that was at a time when they were looking for the football players, for the collegiate wrestlers, for this. They didn't want, and then shortly after, Triple H brings in NXT and this idea happens. And now we're seeing Finn Balor and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and stuff like that. And now it's switched again. So it's entertainment. It's wrestling. Everything goes in waves and cycles. So it's not forever. It's for now.
That's true. Absolutely. Not forever. It's for now. And if you talk about forever, NXT was not forever. The NXT that you knew and you were a part of, it was not forever. And now we have a very colorful animal altogether, a unicorn to say the least. It's the NXT 2.0. How do you feel about the presentation? How do you feel about the whole idea behind it?
I mean, honestly, I don't mind the actual presentation of it. I think it's cool. I like color. You see behind me, I enjoy some color lights. I think it's cool. I think as much as at the time and place, the gritty black and gold was, that's super cool. I loved it. I loved it being there. I like a change of pace. Not everything can be brown and serious and black and dark and black. And I wear black trunks and I wear black wrist tape and I come out and the arena's dark. Come on, that gets a little bit boring after a while, even if it is cool.
That's right.
That's it. It's tough. I think on paper, from a business standpoint, I think it makes sense. Because you have to. NXT got so big. Here's the one thing, when it moved, and especially you saw it moving down the cable TV onto the USA Network. It wasn't just a network kind of thing like it was when I first got there. So then it became a profitable brand. It became a lucrative brand and all this stuff. Big stars, your Adam Coles, your Johnny Garganos, Tommaso Ciampas, etc. So now you had another brand of the company, which is what we always wanted. But the company also did always want a developmental, which is what FCW, which turned into NXT, was. And that is a valuable thing to have somewhere for new talent to develop before you put them onto a very much larger stage. So that's why it's I get with a lot of fans who are kind of nervous about it and they like their established stars, but I'm like, from a business standpoint, I missed the old NXT when I first started, because before we knew what we were building people left and right. But NXT got so big and so established, it kind of felt like you saw the same people main eventing. You saw the same people in the big segments every single week. And now you had all this talent at the Performance Center. It was like, I can't even get on NXT, which is supposed to be the show for the new recruits, because it was kind of turning into its own Raw and SmackDown, which had the same crop of talent. So it was hard to break through onto the show where you were supposed to break through.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you, and I've also noticed that you call it a developmental brand, but again, if it's on TV, if millions of people are watching it, when it's a developmental brand, there is room for correction, there is room for improvement, there's room for mistakes. But when it is on TV and so many eyes are on the product and there's high expectations, there is no room for improvement, there is no room for mistakes, and that's what I also felt about this giant NXT that it just became. That it was a problem. Wow, totally agree.
Yeah, it's like problem is hard because it grew, which is good. That's a good problem to have if your thing has gotten so big that you have to put that much focus on it. But you lose a little bit of that. Like, we needed a spot to highlight new upcoming talent who don't have all the pieces put together yet, but we have to test them kind of somehow. You have to throw it out there, and it may not work, and then you'll pull it back. And that's what NXT was when we first started. You had all these characters. Some of them blew up, New Day wasn't really us, but people like Woods and Big E came through there and tried a couple of things. Big E didn't just come out as the New Day. He tried the 5 count guy, and he tried all kinds of things down there, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. And that's a little bit what we've been missing, I think, the last few years of NXT. So, while again, I'm a huge fan of the brand that we built, it'll be interesting to see what kind of talent can now start to develop, having their own kind of ecosystem again.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about, college athletes, we were just talking about that, we were talking about talent developing, I would also like to go back to the whole independent part, the independent circuit. So after graduating college, you were actually in the independent circuit. You did 6 matches, I believe, in 2013. And how was that experience? How was the experience being on the independent circuit for that time?
I mean, I could even tell you, because I was barely on that. It wasn't even probably less than 6 matches. Honestly, I graduated from my beginners class training in 2012, April of 2012. And I was offered a contract by November of 2012.
That's right.
So I wrestled, maybe 4 or 5 matches. I was just a kid. I just learned to wrestle, and I was just doing a lot of pre-show matches or opening card matches, kind of thing. And just met a couple people here in the local Chicago scene. But like I said, I'm a very prime example of right place, right time, right people. Like I said, had a great relationship with Norman Smiley. They were looking for just to add a couple young people to the FCW roster at the time, just to kind of pad it out and see what sticks. And I was lucky enough to get one of those opportunities, and I made the most of it.
They hit gold with that one, that's for sure. So, Matthew, your first televised match at FCW was actually an intergender, a mixed tag team. and it was against Victor and Paige. Now, we know how WWE is when it comes to intergender matches and it comes to mixed tag team matches. You know, they don't like to do it a lot, especially intergender. They try not to flirt with the idea. Whereas if you look at Impact Wrestling, intergender is not that uncommon. You see it here and there, you know, often at times you see it. What are your thoughts on intergender matches yourself?
I love it. You know, I like the idea of it, especially, I mean, it's the way, I think it's the way a lot of people want to see it. Now, I think there is a value of having separate divisions just doing their own thing, you know, world championships, things like that. I think there's value to that. But I think there is something fun about being able to see that. Because when I remember when I first started training, we all trained together. We all rolled around in the same ring. We would run through drills, lockups, you know, hip tosses, all this stuff. We would all just train together at FCW. And then eventually they instituted a separate kind of policy. But man, I think it's great. And I think the world, it's different. I think the world wants to see it. I think the world is ready to see it. I think we're beyond, especially, I'm sure there was a lot of people who are always afraid of this, you know, almost appearance of like, without, you know, sugarcoating it, domestic violence kind of situation, you know, man beating on a woman, right? But damn, these women are kicking ass, and damn, they're strong, and damn, they can fight. So I think the world is in a better place to accept that, like, yeah, we're all athletes, we're all competitive, and there's so much more if you allow that. The content you can get, the overlapping, all of a sudden you've opened your doors to all different rivalries and stuff like that, and that you never would have even considered before. And that's what I want to see. I want to see more of. We're starting to see like matches, and they're like novelties a little bit still. And I'd love to see it more integrated into like full on storylines. I think Impact has been at the forefront of that. You know, they've done a lot of that, a lot more than I think anybody else, and put it in on camera, right front and center, and even into the storytelling that we do.
Absolutely. And Impact Wrestling, I feel, is so overlooked by a lot of fans, but it should not be. I mean, they've got all the talent, and they dare to do a lot of stuff that you don't see a lot of mainstream wrestling companies such as WWE doing. They do a lot. They offer a lot of uniqueness, a great platform for the wrestling fans. I feel like it is overlooked, and it should not be. But speaking of Impact Wrestling, Matt, we know that the Knockouts champion, you know, Mickie James, is going to be entering the Royal Rumble this year. Now, what are the chances that we also get to see the homecoming king and queen, Deonna Purrazzo, and the Drama King also enter the Rumble? Are there any chances?
I mean, there's always a chance, right? I mean, but I'm not a BSer. Let's put it that way. You know, you're not going to see me there. I'll put that to bed right now. But you never know. I mean, but of course, who, where, what, why, when, how. This is wrestling, man. You know better than anybody. The fans know better than anybody. Especially in these last 2 years or so, between the Forbidden Door, whatever you want to call it. We've seen a lot of things that we didn't think were possible, and now normally that was all outside of WWE. Everybody else did it. They kind of left it alone, and now there's just this little glimmer of maybe. You know what I mean? And not to tout Impact Wrestling again, but Impact Wrestling has been the only one with this move to make that relationship with WWE in the entire pro wrestling world to kind of have this crossover. So it's a very cool thing to see.
Indeed, Impact Wrestling has been the front runner of this whole, Forbidden Door stuff. I mean, AAA, you talk about Impact Wrestling, ROH, WWE. Impact Wrestling has had good working relationship with everybody. Now, did you know that they were going to announce this partnership? Did you know it beforehand that they were actually opening the Forbidden Door to Impact Wrestling stores? And how was the general, reaction of Impact Wrestling stores to the whole announcement?
I mean, no, we didn't know. I didn't know until I saw it on Twitter, like a lot of people. And I think even a lot of people in our Impact locker room was the same thing. We didn't know about it until we saw it announced, and it was like, whoa. And to hear, and even to hear WWE even acknowledge the Impact Women's Champion in there. Although, come on, Nikki, social media, I know you. Tag Impact, brother. Tag us. Don't back down, brother. I know you. I got your number still. But it was very, very cool to see. So I think the general feeling was excitement and surprise, like I said, because nobody had really done this kind of thing with WWE during this whole period. So it was cool that we got that, our company kind of got that first chance to do that. And so it was general excitement backstage.
That's awesome. Yep, the excitement was alike and the fans as well. I mean, Twitter was on fire. Everybody was talking about it. It was a lot of excitement. And people are still looking forward to seeing Mickie James bring over the Impact Knockouts champion, enter with that title at the Rumble. Very exciting times ahead. Now, Matt, I would like to come back to the topic of FCW. We were just talking about your first televised match against Victor, the guy, the first televised match you fought against. Now, the Ascension was one of the first NXT-made tag team that fans say was ruined, absolutely destroyed on the main roster. Since you've been so up and close with, Victor, Connor, the Ascension, what was your whole, reaction to the downfall of the Ascension? And did you feel like they were actually destroyed?
It was a shame. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it, and that was one of several examples of just this disconnect between how superstars and personas and stuff were built and branded in NXT, built in this really great microcosm down there, and just this loss of translation to whoever, and I don't even know who was, besides Vince McMahon himself running the show at the time. And I think there's it always felt like there was this people who think oh, they had no idea what was going on in NXT. They paid no attention. That's not true. It's all part of the company. They know, but I think it was a very vague, oh, these guys are this thing. I got it. It kind of felt like that. Okay, I get it. Just give it to me kind of thing. It's that person here, let me explain how this radio works. Yeah, it's a radio. Just give me the radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt kind of like that, where it's yeah, they knew the Ascension. Pair of badasses. They beat everybody. They run through everybody. They win really quickly. Okay. And I think it just got mutated a little bit, and it's such a hard place for talent, because here you are, you're getting this, you want to call it a promotion, whatever. It's a big opportunity to go up to the main roster, the big show, as whatever you want to call it. And so you're very much in as I'm kind of always taught, is whatever you need, right? It's you're not here, you're not coming up and telling people, I'm doing it this way. You try telling Vince McMahon that, and unless you're one of two people on the planet. So it puts you in between a rock and a hard place. Something in your gut is not great, not the best thing for your persona, for your character, for the presentation. But at the same time, you don't really have the leverage or the platform to say no or to protest too much. So you try in little ways to try to maybe control the boat, as it were, but it's a really tough place for talent. Yeah, I think the Ascension is an example of something that got really lost in translation, and it was unfortunate because I love those guys and I loved working with them.
That's right. And a recent example of this whole NXT to main roster, being a total disaster is Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. I mean, we saw Karrion Kross, a total beast on NXT, comes to the main roster. They put a helmet on him. They put a horrendous-looking outfit on him. And what the explanation was, being reported was that they want to sell merchandise, and they want to sell merchandise of different masks, different helmets, different outfits. Do you think there's any truth to those rumors, or is the creative just stupid?
I don't know. I wasn't there, right? I have no idea. I don't know who's running. I didn't even know who's running creative. I don't know. I didn't like the presentation I saw from them, obviously. From the little bit I saw of it, I don't know Kross at all. So, I mean, I hate to say, I don't really know anything about anything. I didn't like it, obviously, and a lot of people have responded and didn't really like it, but I think it's just, it's another example of lost in translation, thinking one thing that worked, it's not going to work here or whatever. I just think it's another unfortunate situation.
It is. And since we're talking about, repackaging, rebranding, I remember it was in September, I believe 2013, when you actually sang the parody of Major General's song. It was the first time. And I feel like that whole segment, it made all the difference. It created a new way, paved a new way for you in the WWE. So whose idea was it to start singing? Was it an idea that you actually pitched backstage? Or who came up with that?
I mean, everything you saw from Aiden English in NXT was me.
Wow.
Pretty much. segments and stuff were written to happen, but I mean the look, the character, the singing songs, Broadway parodies was me, which I got in trouble for, by the way. Yeah, it was all me. And
sorry, I just have to ask you. You said you got in trouble for Broadway parodies?
So yeah, my understanding. So when I started doing it was the idea. I'm like, technically, I'm not singing the lyrics, right? I'm doing like a parody version, which I thought fell under. There's literally a thing called parody law in this country,
Okay.
where you can, as long as you're not literally using the exact mark or the exact words or whatever, and it's a satirical riff on something. Usually, you can get away with it. Sitcoms do it all the time. It's like if you wanted to make fun of Miller beer and you called it like Mylar beer. Hey, blah, blah, and you had like a kind of similar look. As long as it's part of like a satirical joke, or generally you can scoot by it. So I thought I was doing that. So they literally called me like a year later. This is like a year later when they were putting these episodes on the network, and they're like, yeah, so like you're singing to the tune of these copyrighted Broadway hits.
Okay.
Which even the melody is technically copyrighted. So they're like, we have to re-edit your entrances. So they put like plain music over my singing to make it sound different or something like it. Or they almost wanted me to like in post re-record what I was singing for a while. I think they eventually left it alone because I don't think they did get the pushback they were afraid they were going to get. But I just remember getting a call from the music department just being like, yeah, we gotta fix this, which I thought was wild. Yeah.
And you're probably one of the very few wrestlers who have ever had trouble with the music department.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even call it trouble. They were just, they were probably getting breathed down by someone from legal or something like that. So yeah, probably one of the few people who had that conversation. We have to change your musical parodies.
That is hilarious. And I thought I'm still think that you're one of the best singers, actually the best singer that WWE's ever had. But then you lost to Colin Cassidy on, I believe, January the 1st episode of 2014, first episode of NXT. Colin Cassidy is a pretty solid singer himself.
I love Big Cass, W Morrissey as we know him in Impact. Yeah, no, that was honest. It's one of my most favorite memories of my career. It was the first big segment, but kind of for both of us, really. It was the first big chance for him to show some personality because before that he was just the big, tall, big guy, right? He's just another big guy who's 7 feet tall and does a big boot. Like that was, and so it was a chance for him to show some personality, and he's got a lot of personality. And yeah, brother can carry a tune. And so we had such a good time and have had so many people come up and tell them that was one of their favorite like NXT segments of all time and everything like that. So I'm very proud of that we did.
Now that you both are on Impact Wrestling, the Morrissey, you both are there. What are the odds that we could actually see you both releasing a song together, a duet together? Is there a possibility? Have you guys talked?
I mean, no, we haven't. But I'm gonna say never because the world is a crazy place. We live in a world of content, and it's entertainment, brother. But the plans have not been stoked as of yet. But I go to tapings this weekend. Maybe I'll bring it up to him.
All right. I was speaking to PJ Black just before our interview, and I thought he was the bunny, but I see the bunny costume, the bunny right behind you. What's the story behind that?
So every time I do a live stream or anything, like people always like, "Were you the bunny? Were you the bunny?" I was like, "No."
That's right.
It's a very similar looking bunny head. My wife is a performer too. She did a music video where they had to wear bunny heads, and they let her keep it. And I just thought it was such a funny thing.
So good.
So I just threw it in my background. Yeah,
it's really good. It's really good. No, I just had to ask that.
Of course.
The whole time. So I was thinking, was PJ lying to me? But now, okay. All right.
No. Him and Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody else. I forget who. Somebody else is the bunny. Multiple people wore that hat.
That's crazy. And he told me that Vince McMahon actually was supposed to be the bunny too. But
I heard that. Yeah, I remember hearing that.
That's crazy. That is craziness. So now that we already spoke about 2013, and now we're on to 2014, and that's the year that the Vaudevillains actually formed. And you guys, were one of the most decorated tag teams in NXT, and fans loved you. However, when you made your main roster debut around that time, you turned heel. Do you think that was a bad decision?
So if you really look at it, though, we were only babyface for about 6 months out of our entire 3-year run.
Right.
And our entire time in NXT, we were heels, except for the right before the championship match with Blake and Murphy. We were heels the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Even when, I specifically remember one taping where, so we had been heels, but we had started to get over with the crowd.
Right.
And so on live events, we started playing with being baby faces, and they let us do it a little bit. And we'd kind of been off TV for a little while. So when we came back to TV and we just had like a simple match, we're like, all right, the babyface, nobody said otherwise. So we're like, the babyface stuff seemed to have worked on all the live events. It seems to be going good. I'm like, let's just do it on our TV match. Yeah. And so we went out there and we played the babyfaces and we won. And we literally came back and we got pulled aside and be like, what are you doing? You're heels. Okay. And we're like, what? But we like, because the coaches had seen all our live event matches. They saw us working babyface. We're like, oh, we've been doing this for the past several weeks. We thought it would. They're like, no, you're still heel on the TV show. Go back out there and do it again. You can do it as heels. So we had to literally go back, re-record the same match like 30 minutes later, but do it as heels. And then the funny thing was, then it was like 2 months later, they were like, okay, you're going to be baby faces against Blake and Murphy going into this story.
It's hilarious. That is hilarious. But on the main roster, it did not work. It did not last too long. What villains? What do you think was the reason behind it?
So I mean, it could have. I didn't mind debuting as heels. I think again, I almost think it's better to debut, especially to a new one, as heels, because it's easier. The classic, it's easier to get people to hate you than it is to get them to love you, especially right off the bat. So even if we were entertaining or interesting characters, if we were being bad guys, kind of like New Day, they were heels. Who the people just like, yeah, no, we like whatever this is, the shenanigans from the New Day, and the audience turned them. So I'm like, we could do that, right? We can do that. So I'd rather start as a heel. But for us, it was less of a lost in translation like it was with like the Ascension. They knew what we were, but I just don't think they gave it enough explanation, illustration, etc. Like our team like us, we're so odd, different, unique. We needed maybe whether it's vignettes or something to really kind of flesh out who these characters were. And then when you put us into one of them, to me, the biggest missed opportunity with the Vaudevillains was we debuted, there was a tag team tournament for #1 contendership. We ended up winning that, and we would go to into a storyline with the New Day. And that's where we thought, I'm like, all right, right off the debut, we haven't done much as far as like character work, which I wish we would have, but I'm like, here we go. We're wrestling the New Day. And we have like 3 weeks of story with the New Day leading to a pay-per-view. I'm like, oh, it's the New Day. If there's anybody who can like play off these characters with us, it is them. Oh my God, let's do this. And I remember having conversations with Xavier Woods about the backstage segments we could do, the vignettes we could do. We talked about, that was at the time of Bootios. So we talked about, we could kidnap the Bootio and tie it to a train track like an old black and white movie.
That's right.
And Woods would be crying as we stole the Bootio from them. Just kind of funny, over the top, but ultimately incredibly entertaining and engaging stuff. Yeah. And ultimately, they just wanted us to be kind of nameless, faceless bad guys who ran out and beat up the New Day. We did that like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They even did the time machine segment on Raw, where the New Day came out in the time, kind of making fun of us for being old-timey, which is like they got to show personality, but what did we do? Instead of responding with personality and like with a vignette or with a segment or a film, which would have been great, they just had us come out from beneath the ring and beat them up. And then we just beat them up the next week. And then we lost in a tag title match. It's like there was so much ground you could have farmed for character and all that stuff, which I think really would have established who we were. It would have played out. Again, we didn't need to beat the New Day. I don't care about that. But it was just like that month could have been so good in just fleshing out the vaudevillain, especially being able to play off incredible characters like the New Day.
Matthew, can I tell you, I especially have learned a lot about American culture, about, European culture from wrestling, because I've been watching wrestling since my childhood. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot about the world, about different cultures. And when I looked at the vaudevillains, I thought this is something new. This is something fresh. I don't know a lot about the early 1900s. This is something that I can learn from, right? I can learn a lot about the personality, about the characters and whatnot. And NXT, you guys, it was great. And when you came into the main roster, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to see more. And just like you said, they did not give you time or the platform to develop your character. And that's exactly what I've been telling everybody, that the Vaudevillains were just such a lovable tag team. People love them in NXT. I know a lot of people in India and, Singapore and all these places. They love the Vaudevillains and they wanted to know more about them. They got confused because I believe that what WWE would have assumed is that the audience just gets it. They just get that they're trying to portray the early 1900s. But what they forgot was that there's an international market, which is a pretty huge market. They don't know what vaudevillains are all about. They don't know the history. They want to know, but there is no. They did not. They dropped the bomb there, and I feel sorry about it. I mean, that would have been a very historic tag team. I feel.
I think so too.
Yeah. Well, just speaking of the tag team, so there people talk a lot about Simon Gotch, your tag team partner. There are a lot of reports. Some say that he's a great guy. Some say he was difficult to work with. On record, Ryback has said that, he was a pain to work with. They say that he had some conflicts backstage. I don't know what the truth is, but, if you could clear the air and just let us know, as you were the tag team partner of Simon Gotch, you knew him better than anybody else in the WWE, if you could just tell us, what is the truth? Was he really difficult to work with, or are these just people hating on Simon?
I mean, as with everything, the truth is always somewhere in the middle, right? It usually doesn't lie in the extremes. I never had a personal issue with Simon working, right? We worked well together. We were never really close outside the ring. We weren't one of those teams where we were like best friends, rode together outside of it. We kind of kept it separate. I had my road buddies and stuff like that, and he had his. Obviously, rumors get out for a reason. There were some people, like in any workplace, that he rubbed the wrong way backstage, probably, and there were some scuffs, some arguments, stuff like that. And, not everybody can get along with everybody. I'm going to kind of leave it at that. But me personally, we had a great working relationship. I still see him sometimes on the independents when we cross paths and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, I don't know where Ryback is from. I don't know. I didn't even know that they ever really interacted, but okay. Sure. But yeah, no, that's that. I'll kind of leave it at that. There's of course, there's some people that may have kind of butted heads with, but I was not one of those. So.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Very candid, Matthew. So, just like you said, you guys were not the best of friends outside of the ring, outside of the wrestling in business, the arena. And it reminded me of a tag team that, they were very good friends. The Crime Time, that's JTG and Chad Gaspard. And what JTG once told me was that back in the day, backstage, the locker room area, the gorilla position, it used to be so hard. It used to be like walking on eggshells. Like, you used to get heat. You used to rub people the wrong way if you were just wearing sunglasses, behind this curtain. Is that still true to this day? Like, are you going to get heat, or are you going to rub people the wrong way if you wear sunglasses, or if you try to act cool, if you're the new guy backstage?
I mean, one, I'm not there. I haven't been there for 2 years, so I couldn't tell you what it's like right now. But when I was there, I mean, I think that sounds a little exaggerated. I'm sure it was the truth at some point. And here's the thing: you can't look at it so simply. I think these stories get attached to one little thing. You talk about sunglasses or like being cool. I'm like, let's think about that. Really, let's throw a little common sense in there and be like, if you hear a story about somebody got heat for wearing sunglasses, do you think they really got heat for wearing sunglasses? No, that is so preposterous. But people know this legendary character like Vince McMahon, so they believe that the idea of he saw someone wearing sunglasses and he got angry and he threw a book at him. Like, no. But maybe the person was being arrogant, was talking down to a writer, or was demanding something when it was their first day on the roster or something, carried a little bit of attitude, because this business brings a lot of people with type A personalities. So there's attitudes abound. So that being said, though, I mean, is it a little? Sometimes it's a little eggshelly there. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's so many people around, and everyone's trying to keep the bosses happy and stuff like that. So that does exist to an unfortunate degree. I don't think it's the way it was like what JTG is talking about. I think it has gotten better over time. The culture is a little bit,
Right.
it's slowly. It's not caught up with the rest of the world, but it's slowly moving that way. But I don't ever remember having a time where I'm like, I can't walk this way or wear that. I was never like that petrified, but there definitely is a feeling of just, you don't want to rub the wrong person the wrong way. So
because I keep my sunglasses on for every interview I do, but after what JTG told me, every time I do a WWE interview, my sunglasses are off. So I keep that in mind, just to be careful.
Sure.
So, Matthew, we've seen with a lot of tag teams that one partner goes away, the other partner sooner or later, gets released. It doesn't really get pushed. But for you, it worked, thankfully the other way around, and you were paired up with Rusev, and you guys were shot to the moon. So can you tell us, in brief, how was the experience working with Rusev?
Oh, dude, that was awesome. That's probably one of the highlights, just that whole run of like my career. It was so much fun, and it was so much fun to be a part of something that wasn't just popular. It's great that like people loved it and everything, but that is just it. It wasn't something that was being forced upon them. The audience made it. Like that sounds like such a cheesy phrase. I know we say that all the time. Like the people did it, but literally, because there was no plans for that to happen. And the audience made it happen. And the audience fought against what the company sometimes was trying to do. And it was just being part of something so organic, like not forced, totally natural. Like I tell this in every interview. I'm like, look at that team on paper, made no sense. There was no reason Aiden English and Rusev, the Bulgarian brute, should have been paired together for any reason. Like that a script writer would come up with. Like, how do I get there? But for some reason, people went, yep, I don't know what the hell that is, but I like it. This is different. This is weird. And we both got the opportunity, especially him, to kind of show more personality. Again, that's what people fall in love with. He was a badass. He's always been a badass, big guy. And that'll always be, I think, his money is he's a big badass guy. But
Right.
You can only go one dimensional for so long. So for him to get that chance to, and he kind of forced it. There's a lot of things he didn't get exactly permission for that he would, in backstages and promos, but he just got to be a little bit more Miro and a little bit less Rusev, if not just for a little while. So and I think that's what people really fell in love with. And we both got to do that a little bit. I got to break out of just being the theater guy or whatever. I was still doing the singing, but we got to talk and actually act like real people and have fun and goof around and be entertaining. And so it just felt very natural. So it was a lot of fun to take that ride.
Love it. So you've said this in previous interviews that Vince and the writers basically wanted you guys to be heel. Were they angry about the fans wanting you to turn babyface?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Angry is not like the word. I think a lot of again, there's also this misconception about, I think Vince, like, he wants to stomp down something that's popular or whatever because he doesn't. It's not that black and white. That's a totally evil person. Because if you own a business and something's popular, you don't go, screw it. You welcome. There's a reason. We wouldn't have been on TV at all if he truly thought it was like, this is crap. And I hate this. We were on TV every week because they knew there was something there. That said, I think they had a preconceived notion of how he wanted Rusev to ultimately be booked. I think in the boss's head, he was still and always will be the Bulgarian brute. He's that guy. Okay, let him do the personality, but I'm not going to make him my baby face. I'm not going to make him the happy-go-lucky. Like he's got to stay that. So I think there was a little stubbornness in that. He sees him the way he sees him, and that's it. I think the same thing went for me. I was the sidekick, and it was a tooth and nail to let me do anything in that team sometimes. And Rusev would fight for me, and everybody would fight for me, but there was a lot of things like that. It seemed like we were breaking out of preconceived notions to the audience, but fighting preconceived notions backstage. So, yeah, I wouldn't say angry, but I think there was this very much a resistance to nope, we're not going to do this turning thing. because he sees Rusev a certain way. Again, same thing. We wrestled the New Day a lot, and New Day I remember talking to Big E and Woods, being like, "How are they not doing this? We were like, let's do a rivalry with us. At the end of it, we'll all hug or something. Like, this is so easy to flip you guys. I don't know why they're not doing it." Right. God, I love working with those guys. they're so giving and so nice and everything like that. But yeah, I couldn't tell you ultimately why they never did it, but I think it was a lot to do with the management and Vince McMahon's just kind of preconceived ideas about Rusev that he didn't want to change.
I see. And, then you had Lana, CJ Perry also get involved in the storyline, sometime later. And from what I felt was that when Lana got, involved in that storyline, you got sidelined. And that is something that I know that fans were also upset about. Did you have that feeling that Lana should have never been added to it?
It's tough because, I think there's always that. It's classic Yoko Ono kind of situation. You were when it first was brought up, and I was like, oh shoot, I'm like, is this going to be like the breakup of the band kind of thing? But then we kind of had some fun with it. Me and Lana got to do some stuff without Rusev. Well, I remember when I got to be out there with her. So I kind of actually liked it for a little while because I'm like, oh, there's this whole Rusev Day family. Again, I'm like, what a great way to turn babyface. We're all we're this big happy family guy and his wife, and there's me, the sidekick who's singing stuff all the time. Again, on paper, it's so weird, but it works because the fans liked it. They got into the Lana is the best, Lana #1 stuff. Shout out to Miro for making that song up. That was all him. And so I thought, I'm like, all right, wasn't what I had in mind originally, but I'm like, maybe this could have legs as a group, as a trio, as a kind of a faction thing. But then ultimately they clearly did want to go with the kind of split down the middle and everything, which was unfortunate. But no, I'd say initial hesitance, then I had a lot of fun, and then the writers decided
it is what it is. But since we're talking about Rusev, you posted a video on your YouTube channel where you talked about, a dark match where you got in trouble. It was a match between yourself, Rusev, Corbin versus Usos, AJ Styles, where you unfortunately got kicked and kicked over and over again, and then you got kicked by the referee, and then you got into trouble. I mean, wow! I was baffled by the whole video. I couldn't believe it. So. First, I'd like to know, when you guys produced this hilariously good segment, it was great, right? And when you were walking to the gorilla, when you were walking backstage, what did you expect the reaction to be?
I mean, yeah. So, again, this is a dark match. These, for those who don't know, these matches that take place after the cameras have gone off. It's very honestly. If you've ever seen the clips of Stone Cold and segments he's done, it's very lighthearted. Send the crowd home happy. Whatever. Usually it's quick match. Babyfaces win. They hit all their moves. And you make the crowd just go, yay. Right. And so we're like, again, another kind of weird match on paper. Us, Corbin, Usos team with AJ. It's kind of like this hodgepodge. I'm like, all right, we'll do it. I think we did it on a live event before one time. We'll do the super kick party. It'll be a lot of fun. Just kick. We'll do the thing where I don't want to get kicked anymore. And my own team throws me back in. And originally the whole thing was going to be, I kick my own team because I got so fed up with them feeding me in for kicks. I was going to turn around, kick my own team members, and then I get kicked, and then 1, 2, 3, which would have been great too. But then they started chanting for the ref, and we're like, all right, we got to change on the fly. And we were like, Dan, who was the ref, super nice guy, we're like, go for it. And AJ pulled the shirt off and everything. And we're like, kick, and we did it. 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's all for fun. You know what I mean? And again, the cameras are off. This isn't part of the storyline. This isn't part of anything. And so I guess we had seen so many people do things similar that going back, we're like, that'll be fun. And I believe it was the SmackDown right before WrestleMania too. And we're like, great, go home, sending people into the weekend with a fun match, big ha moment, send them home, send the crowd home happy. Gave them what they wanted because they literally chanted for the ref. So yeah, we thought it'd be like, you guys are goofy. High five. We'll see you on the weekend.
That's right.
And we just got death stared. Like, what are you doing? Of course, nobody. No disrespect to anybody, but nobody of upper tier. There was no Vince McMahon there. There was no Triple H there. So I think it was a lot of people just worried about them getting in trouble. Oh, we're going to get in trouble because this was on our watch kind of thing. So we all just rolled our eyes so much. It was such an overreaction. There was thoughts of we were going to be fined or fired or all this. The referee was going to get fired, all this stuff. And we were all like, are you effing kidding me? And we didn't go out there and like pull our pants down and pie each other in the face. I mean, we were still doing wrestling. We were just having a little bit of fun with it. So yeah, all of our minds were absolutely just blown away by that.
This kind of reminds me of the same thing that happened with the music department. I mean, they just got worried that they would get, in trouble, and they just wanted to save their jobs.
There's a lot of that.
But again, you mentioned that maybe this happened because the guys in question were you guys. So that makes me wonder, did AJ Styles, the veteran, did he also get in trouble for pulling off the referee's shirt?
Right. So like I wasn't there because we went back first and like we got kind of chewed out and kind of sent out. So I don't know what happened when he came back. Right. From what all intents and purposes, he probably got a little something like we heard that the rumor was nobody really said anything to AJ. And it's like, yeah, see, this is exactly what we were kind of like. It's because it was us too. We were easy targets. We're easy people to kind of drop the hammer on. So yeah.
Got it. Wow. And this was the last show before Mania. It must be heartbreaking. But speaking of Mania, before WrestleMania 34, the last time I saw somebody get their head shaved, during Mania was Vince McMahon. And then I see you, WrestleMania 34, entering the Andre the Giant Memorial, hair intact, looking good. And then you come out, second appearance the same night with the head shaved. Why, and how? I still have questions.
Yeah. No, so it was going into that WrestleMania, that whole season, I had been toying with the idea of shaving my head. And it actually came from my family does not have a good hairline. Let's put it that way. I was already starting to lose it. And there's a very specific picture. And I wrestled a match sometime in February against Shinsuke Nakamura on SmackDown. And there was a picture from WWE.com or whatever where I'm getting hit and I'm taking a bump and my hair flipped back and there was a huge bald spot back here. And I was like, I knew my hair was thin back there, but when I saw it like flipped up and I'm like, oh, that's so bad. That's so bad. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, my hairline was already going back. I'm like, it's not getting any better. I'm not getting like surgery. I don't want to do that. I'm like, my family history just tells me this is going to happen. Accept it. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do the shaved head look. And then I knew Rusev had the title match at Mania. So I'm like, all right, I know I'll be out there with him. But then there's the Andre, which is usually everybody who doesn't have like a match at Mania is pretty much in that match. So I'm like, I'm out there. Am I going to be in the Andre? Am I not? And once I found out I would be, I was like, ooh, that could be cool. Come out with one look, my kind of standard Black Drama King look, hair slicked back. And I'll get eliminated early, and then I'll run backstage. I'll get the hair and makeup department to shave it, and then I'll come out with an entirely new look within one show. I thought that would be a very cool thing, and I'm so glad a lot of people picked up on it. They did. I had new gear, a new jacket, new head, everything.
You look good both before when you had hair, after the hair, look good all the time. But since you mentioned that Andre the Giant, it's a match that the people who don't have a match, they just get put in the match. So what do you think about the statement that, that just gets passed around a lot during Mania season, is that every match at WrestleMania is the main event? Do you agree with that statement?
I mean, in a way, yeah. Like, at least if you're in one of those matches, you should kind of think that way. And to be fair, that's something you should think every show you're on. It's try to steal the spotlight, try to be the match people talk about. But especially at WrestleMania, where there's so many eyes on it, it's the highlight of the year. I don't care if you're opening or if you're in the middle of the card or if, you're right before the main event and you're supposed to be a short little match just to get us hyped for the main event. Your intention should be, whether they give you 5 minutes or, 25 minutes, I'm going to make people remember me. I'm going to make this the standout of the night. I'm going to make this the memory people go home with. So, yeah, in a manner of speaking, yes, you should be thinking that way. Everybody on the roster should.
Wow. Thank you. By the way, Matthew, I must say thank you so much for all the time that you've given us. You've really shared stories that we've never heard of before. Incredible stuff. You were so candid throughout this interview, and I mean, I must say that WWE run of yours was incredible. But what you're doing after WWE is even more mind blowing. And before I let you go, I just have a couple questions that I'd like to ask about. The first question is, I know that you suggested an idea of an artist kind of a gimmick to Vince McMahon, where you wanted to be this artist wrestler. You wanted to splash paint over your opponents, look at the ring as a canvas, and it just sounded like a great idea. Art of wrestling, artist. It just made total sense to me. Since that we never got to see in the WWE, is there a possibility that we'll get to see that gimmick come to life, maybe in some other promotion?
I mean, yeah, I've already kind of started it in Impact. I've done a couple of these vignettes, which are huge shout out to the Impact crew. I'm like, this is what I wanted to be doing in WWE, like these stylized events where I'm painting, I'm singing, and I'm just, it's kind of like a mad artist. We've done a little bit, so I'm hoping to get back to that a little bit more in the future sometime. So, but they were really open to that creative idea. So that's exactly the kind of thing I wanted to bring a little bit over to Impact, and I've already started it. So hopefully there's absolutely more that we could do there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Now, apart from that, another thing that I absolutely love about you, Matthew, is that you are a content creator. But what you say is that we should not be content creators. We should be community creators and build a community all around, which is beautiful, which I feel is a message that should go around across to all the content creators out there, especially wrestling. So do you have, what are the plans that you have for your YouTube channel, for your Twitch channel moving on? Are there any big plans, big stuff in the making?
So that, I mean, honestly, that's a big part of my goals for 2022. Honestly, I want to really widen my palette, because like there's so many things I'm interested in and that I love and that I want to bring my sense of spice to, if you will. Something I've through Twitch and everything like that I've fallen in love with is esports. Like I think it's this huge growing category. I've loved following the scene of several different games. It's competitive gaming, I know, which to a lot of people sounds like, are you kidding me? But it is huge, especially in Asia and everything like that. There are millions of people who will watch the finals for League of Legends or something, or Valorant or Overwatch or something like that. They watch competitive pro players, this like we do here watching football players in America, right? It's very, very popular. It's a growing category all over the world. And it's something that's new to me. Like, God, it's so funny because so many people in the scene are like 18, 20 years old and everything. Here I am discovering it in my 30s, but man, I love it. So like, it's one of my goals is to help maybe take part in some events this year for esports and things like that. So that's kind of the focus of the gaming side of things, of like my Twitch and YouTube and everything like that. But I'm hoping to bring more content in general to that. I'm trying to figure out, I've spent the past like year or two kind of figuring out my voice in different ways. And so hopefully 2022 is the time when I can take that and kind of push it forward.
I'm pretty sure you will. I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a lot of eyes to your product. It's incredible. You're an incredible person overall, so I can't see why it wouldn't happen. Since we're talking about YouTube, there's another YouTube channel of yours, which is Wrestling with Whiskey. And it's great, but I have one question. How were you able to pull off that channel without WWE pulling it under its umbrella?
Because it wasn't very popular.
Okay.
It's whatever. I mean, it's small. It's a very small channel. I'm very self-deprecating, but but the fact of the matter, it's a pretty small channel. That's why. If it blew up to like up, down levels of 100,000 or more and getting revenue and views and stuff like that, maybe they would have wanted to try it. But I mean, I don't think anybody in the company even knew it existed for the time I was there. So yeah, it's my small little niche project.
But the one thing I love about the content you create is very homely. It's very, I feel the warmth when I look at your videos. It's like you're talking to a friend, very welcoming. And just like I said before, the fact that you created for the community, not just to create content, is so special. One more question, Matthew, before I let you go, and it's been a long time. Is the fans want to hear it? Fans want to know the answer to this one. I know you said never say never, but we've heard you sing for Rusev, Rusev Day in the WWE. Are we gonna hear you sing Miro Day maybe in All Elite Wrestling one day?
No.
Wow, that's okay.
Yeah. But here's my reason. It's not a no, screw that. And again, I did a video on this as well. If you want to check out the YouTube channel, Drama King Matt. But it just like, again, never say never. It would have to be incredibly awesome writing, perfect scenario for me to kind of do that again. And here's the reason why. It's not that I didn't. Again, I told you how much I love that time. But I'm a huge believer in evolving forward. Like, I don't like going backwards. And I've talked to people who are like, yeah, but man, the thing, it's like a rock band, right? You got to play your hits and then you can show people your new stuff. But wrestling doesn't have that luxury of being able to do both. When you're a band, you can open up with Don't Stop Believin', you know what I mean? And then you can play your new track off your new album. You can get them both in the same show. As a personality on a wrestling show, you kind of you give them one thing at a time. I can't do Miro Day and then also try to be this artist character. Like, you have to do one or the other on TV for weeks or months at a time. You have to commit to one.
That's right.
So that's my thing. I would feel like, one, I'm going backwards. I don't want to go backwards. Two, no matter any way you spin it, it would come off as a copycat of a WWE product. And I don't like that. Because here's the thing. I know it was us. I know we were fighting against the system with Rusev Day, so it wasn't even really their idea. But that's where it was born. It was born on WWE television. It was made popular on WWE television. So to see it somewhere else, just basically me coming out, doing an entrance for him, singing Miro Day, it would seem like a watered down or copied version of something that already happened and trying to strike lightning twice, which does not happen. So those are my reasons you won't see that exact thing, right? You're not going to see a recreation of it in AEW or anywhere else, because I think neither one of us want that. He's moving on to other things. I'm moving on to other things. That said, would I love to work with Miro again? Hell yeah. I love that. Whether it's a different kind of team, we can acknowledge our past, but build something new in the future. I'm down for something like that. And I would love to wrestle against him in a storyline or a feud, whatever you want to call it, because he's such a great wrestler, such a great guy to work with. So in any way, shape, or form, love to work with him again. But yeah, we're not going to try to recreate the magic. Let's love it for what it was, but we'll leave it there in the past, and if we want, we could build something new.
I love it. So maybe we get to see an AEW versus Impact Wrestling war one day, and we get to see Miro and Matthew Rehwoldt one-on-one. That would be great.
Could be. Absolutely could be.
Matthew, I must say, this was one of the most enjoyable interviews. Really, it felt like I was talking to somebody who's a wrestler, a celebrity, but also such a big fan, and very, very honest about all the answers. It's such a candid interview. When I started this interview, when I was doing the introduction, I had a feeling this was going to be one of the most candid interviews ever, and it just was that. So thank you so much for giving us this interview. Thank you so much for sparing the time for it. Really appreciate it, Matthew.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed myself.
So thank you so much, and I look forward to hopefully chatting with you again. Thanks.
Absolutely.